She wasn't just a star, she was the dream of an entire generation. But in old Hollywood, dreams came at a price no one dared to speak of. This is the story of a rise built on perfection, a fall orchestrated in shadows, and a legacy rewritten by secrets buried in studio vaults. The cameras adored her, the tabloids devoured her, and the truth, well, the truth was locked away for decades. Until now. What you're about to hear will change the way you see her. And maybe the way you see Hollywood itself. They stood beneath the dazzling lights, icons in their own right, yet bound together in a story that no amount of stardust could hide. From the beginning, Blake Shelton and Gwen Stefani seemed like an impossible match. Country and pop colliding in front of millions of viewers on The Voice. It felt like destiny unfolding live on primetime television. America fell in love with their love. The laughter, the chemistry, the way she would touch his arm and he would grin like a shy teenager. It wasn't just romance, it became part of the show's heartbeat, a storyline engraved into the culture of modern music television. But every fairy tale carries shadows, and beneath the glitter, there were cracks forming. Cracks the audience could not see. Blake Shelton had always been a man carrying two lives. On stage, the confident cowboy with a guitar who could turn heartbreak into poetry. Off stage, the boy from Ada, Oklahoma, who desperately held on to the roots that grounded him. Before Gwen entered his life, Blake had weathered storms that would have wrecked lesser men. His divorce from Miranda Lambert in 2015 was splashed across every headline, dissected until nothing personal felt personal anymore. Fans believed his story had already been told. A man burned by love, saved once again by music. Then came Gwen, stepping into his orbit with platinum hair, red lips, and a story just as scarred by heartbreak. Their meeting felt almost cinematic. Two wounded stars navigating fame, colliding at the perfect time to write a new chapter together. But in Hollywood and in Nashville, the past always finds a way back. The rise of their relationship became a cultural obsession. Tabloids, late-night hosts, fashion magazines, everyone leaned into the glamour of country heartthrob meets pop chameleon. Blake seemed lighter, more open, almost youthful again. Gwen reinvented herself, marrying her rocker roots with the sweetness of a country romance. The public devoured it. Red carpets, duets, stolen glances on live TV. Yet behind those carefully crafted glimpses, tension brewed like storm clouds on the horizon. Studio insiders whispered about scheduling conflicts, the strain of merging two vastly different careers, and the endless pressure to perform not only as artists, but as a couple. To one world, they were proof that love could defy genres. To another, they were the perfect marketing storyline. Two stars constantly circling, but never free from cameras. The cracks began small. Missed appearances, rumors of creative disagreements, sidelong comments that hinted at friction. Just as Gwen was leaning deeper into re-establishing herself as an independent artist, Blake was craving quiet, craving Oklahoma, craving home. Friends close to him said he struggled with being constantly pulled into Gwen's world of fashion, pop, and California glamour. He wanted something simple. She was chasing something new. These weren't catastrophic conflicts, not at first, but like hairline fractures in glass, each one grew under the weight of fame. What the world saw was radiant smiles and hand-holding. What insiders whispered was exhaustion, compromise, and unspoken resentment. Professionally, Blake was planning what he called his most personal collection yet, a stripped-down album, drawn from nights alone at the ranch and mornings spent staring silently at the Oklahoma horizon. Gwen, in contrast, was in full reinvention mode. New music, bold fashion, pushing boundaries with every magazine cover. Their identities began to diverge, not maliciously, but inevitably. And so, the stage was set. When the American Music Awards invited them for a joint performance, it was supposed to be their reaffirmation, a statement that despite the gossip, their bond was unshakable. The fans expected it, the industry anticipated it. The cameras, oh, the cameras, ached for it. But what happened that night was not what anyone expected. Gwen walked the red carpet alone, dazzling in a metallic, futuristic dress that caught the light like shards of diamond. She smiled, posed, swayed for the flashes. Reporters gasped not only because of her attire, but because beside her stood no one. Blake was nowhere to be found. The whispers started instantly. Where was he? Why was he missing? Within hours, speculation spread like wildfire across the digital universe. Social media scrolled endlessly with theories. Had there been a fight? Had he walked out? Fans who idolized them as a duo started to wonder if they were witnessing the unraveling of a romance carefully staged under the spotlight. Then came the performance itself. Gwen stepped onto the stage not with a duet, not with a shared harmony, but with a brand new track. One nobody had seen coming. No apology required. Even the title hit like a slap. Lyrics spilled about betrayal, about distance, about the courage to sing alone when the harmony breaks apart. Each line landed with the subtlety of a blade. It wasn't just a performance. It felt like a confession, a declaration, maybe even an indictment. The audience roared, amazed at her boldness, while a stunned silence fell over those who knew what had been planned. A duet, a shared stage, a unity song. Blake, it turned out, had pulled out just hours before curtain time, blindsided by Gwen's decision to rewrite the narrative. What was supposed to be a triumph became a fissure in public view. Backstage, sources whispered of a blow-up, of hurt, feelings, of a man blindsided by a partner unafraid to make her statement in front of millions. To Blake, it wasn't just a cancelled duet. It was betrayal wrapped in melody. By dawn the next day, tabloids turned it into war. "Is it over?" screamed the magazine racks. Between the red carpet, no-show, the cryptic lyrics, the subtle digs, the narrative was no longer theirs to control. It now belonged to the world. Blake's silence was interpreted as guilt, pain, or anger, depending on which outlet you read. And then, finally, he broke that silence. When your silence speaks louder than the loudest song, no comment, just 11 words posted on Twitter, yet they hit harder than any press release. It was raw, cryptic, and heartbreakingly loaded. Fans flooded to support him, begging for clarity, consoling him with empathy. Some turned on Gwen, accusing her of weaponizing the stage to expose their struggles. Others praised her for her bravery, saying she had reclaimed her voice after years of compromise. Whichever way you read it, the damage was done. This was no longer the fairy tale couple who had lifted each other out of heartbreak. This was a fractured partnership, glittering under, the spotlight yet fraying at the seams. And then came the update Blake had feared most. Just as his personal life spiraled into chaos, his professional anchor slipped away. His upcoming album, Backroads and Heartaches, was delayed indefinitely. The project he poured himself into, the collection of stripped-back ballads that were meant to show fans his truest self, was shelved by his label. The reasoning? The noise, the scandal, the notion that his music would be drowned out by personal drama. The label wants a clean slate, one insider said. And right now, there's just too much noise. For Blake, that wasn't business. It was heartbreak compounded. Friends revealed he admitted, "This one hurt. Music's always been my therapy. Now, it feels like I don't even get that when I need it most." Imagine that pain, your heart unraveling in public view, while the one refuge you sought, your music, is taken away too. For Blake, the red carpet absence had spiraled into something much bigger. This wasn't just a missed performance, it was a tipping point that bled into every part of his life. Friends close to him watched with concern, saying he bottled everything, up behind that familiar crooked smile. Yet his eyes, they whispered, told another story. Defeat. Exhaustion. A man wondering where the script of his life had taken a brutal rewrite. Behind closed doors, the mood shifted from stunned silence to confrontation. Friends say Blake felt targeted, cornered by the performance Gwen put on and blindsided by lyrics he never approved. For years, he had been steady, her anchor in the chaos of reinvention. But on that stage, it felt to him like she had chosen spectacle over partnership. "This one hit harder than the divorce," a close friend admitted quietly. Because this wasn't just the end of love. It felt like the end of trust. For Blake, who had worn his heart so openly when he fell for Gwen, the experience was unbearably public while being painfully private all at once. Imagine living years carefully guarding your love, searching for new peace, only to have it shattered in 3 minutes of music and flashing lights. The fallout became heavier. Music insiders speculated openly that the delay of Blake's album wasn't simply strategic, it was forced. That the turmoil had fractured business relationships nationwide. No label wants to release heartbreak when the artist himself is caught in it, one source reported. That idea, that his personal turmoil accidentally swallowed professional opportunity, burned deep. This wasn't just a love story tarnishing a man's heart. It was the machinery of celebrity chewing him into product, then pulling that product, when scandal soured the taste. And yet, beyond the narrative, deeper scars began to form. For a man who had always seemed resilient, this time felt different. Friends confessed they had never seen him so dented. Divorce, fame, it had all rolled off him before. But this left him hollow. They saw him drinking more quietly, strumming guitars without lyrics, staring into horizons without words. When asked about Gwen, his words became fewer, then none. Only sighs and silence. So where does a man turn when everything collides in ruin? When the love of your life turns a stage into a weapon? When your record label halts your truest art? When every clickbait headline mocks what once felt immortal? You either collapse or you create. Blake began writing again at the ranch, penning verses that would likely never fit radio, maybe never be released at all. Songs about silence, about betrayal, about distance screamed out in melody only the fields could hear. If there was hope left, it was in those hums and half-written lyrics. But even that hope was tempered with exhaustion. The world waited for clarity, clung to unanswered questions. Was the Blake and Gwen story done? Would there be reconciliation? Or was this the final act of their duet? Gwen, defiantly quiet, carried herself into a new era. Fresh tracks that pulsed with independence, fierce magazine spreads, glimpses of a woman stepping into her power. For many, her silence became her exclamation. But for Blake, silence meant something entirely different. It wasn't rebranding. It was retreat and reflection. At times, He hinted that the pain had cut deeper than anyone knew. And yet, somehow, that pain was woven into songwriting sessions that stretched into the solitary hours of dawn. Witnesses said he sounded rawer, more unguarded. Songs about solitude, about betrayal, about rebuilding when the ground itself feels broken. That's the paradox of country music. It thrives most when the heart aches. Blake seemed to understand that better than anyone. And while his album Backroads and Heartaches had been delayed, whispers in Nashville suggested the songs he was creating in that silence might eclipse even what he had written before. It wasn't just a record anymore. It was a diary, set to melody. And fans, even in their curiosity about the drama, began shifting tone. They weren't just wanting gossip. They were waiting for music that healed. The narrative, slowly, was bending toward redemption. But legacy is never tidy, especially when it's carved under the spotlight. The cracks in Blake and Gwen's once golden love story had been televised, tweeted, dissected. And for every fan who prayed for reconciliation, another admitted, sometimes quietly, sometimes loudly, that this separation felt inevitable. Gwen's performance at the AMAs was framed by critics as a reawakening. More Tragic Kingdom than Happy Anywhere. A return to grit, to fire, to the woman who once howled anthems of betrayal at the top of the charts. Music analysts called it the end of the power couple era and the rebirth of Gwen the solo force. And in the cruel framing of celebrity culture, Blake became the collateral damage, painted as the heartbroken figure left behind. But was that the truth? Or was the story incomplete because legacy lives not just in headlines, but in the echoes fans carry forward? And Blake's legacy, even at his lowest, had already been cemented by decades of music that scored heartbreaks, weddings, and late-night drives for millions. One fan wrote poignantly online, "When I was broken, Blake's music carried me. Now it's our turn to carry him." That's legacy. Not tabloids, not gossip, but the relationship between a singer and the souls who find themselves inside his words. And that bond, the one forged through guitars and gravelly vocals, was still intact, maybe stronger than ever. Even as his personal life felt in shambles, his voice still mattered. His voice still healed. Yet, the questions lingered like haunting refrains. Did Gwen mean to send a message with that performance? Or was the interpretation magnified by media hungry for spectacle? Did Blake's retreat signify defeat? Or was it quiet resilience? Did the label delay his album to protect him or to control him? And perhaps most painfully, was this the unraveling of one of the most unexpected, beloved romances in popular culture? Fans argued endlessly in digital spaces, some casting Gwen as cruel, others painting Blake as stubborn. The truth, like most truths, was probably messier, somewhere in between. But obsession never thrives on nuance. It thrives on extremes. In Hollywood history, legacies are rarely linear. Gwen's silence may one day be reframed as strength. Blake's heartbreak may one day be remembered as the spark that shaped his best work. But in this moment, in 2026, both legacies are unfinished stories, played out with the world as witness. And isn't that the cruel thing about fame? Your trials, the same ones ordinary people navigate quietly, become theater on a global stage. But the heart beating beneath, it's still just human. As months passed, the noise dulled. The headlines shifted to newer scandals, fresher heartbreaks. Blake stayed in Oklahoma, writing, breathing. Gwen leaned into artistry, pushing boundaries, as though to reclaim every inch of herself. The silence between them became a canyon. And yet, in the hearts of those who once called them their favorite couple, that silence screamed. Because unanswered questions haunt deeper than spoken words. What promises were left broken? Could time heal what ego and spectacle tore apart? And if their love had been crafted under flashing studio lights, had it ever stood a chance once the lights went out? For Blake, the path forward may not be paved in gossip-laden reconciliations or flashy appearances. It will be paved in music. And if history is any guide, his most haunting, timeless songs will be born from this valley. There is something about watching a man fall, and then witnessing the resilience that carries him back to his feet, that resonates deeper than mistakes ever could. That resilience, that raw return, is where legends are forged, and that's where the weight of his story transforms into something bigger. Because the unraveling of Blake and Gwen isn't just about them, it's a reflection of how we consume celebrity, how we demand spectacle, and how little room fame leaves for silence, for imperfection, for healing. Decades from now, the AMA's controversy may fade into a footnote, but the conversation it began, about relationships under surveillance, about music versus marketing, about love collapsing in the noise of public validation, that conversation will echo. So, what do we make of it? Was Blake betrayed, or was he simply collateral in Gwen's rebirth? Did Gwen weaponize performance, or did she reclaim her truth in the only language she knew? Song? Could Blake's album one day be remembered not as the project delayed by scandal, but as the collection that transcended scandal altogether? Would their love have survived if it existed in a time before every lyric became a headline, before silence was spun into accusation? And perhaps the heaviest question of all, did the world itself, with its hunger for entertainment over empathy, ruin a love that might have lasted had it just been allowed to breathe? These aren't just questions about Blake Shelton and Gwen Stefani. They're questions about fame itself, about legacy, about the brittle line between art and artist, between love and spectacle. And maybe that's why, even as the official answers remain hidden, audiences can't look away. We feel in their heartbreak hints of our own. We see in their mistakes reflections of the pressures we all carry, but magnified by neon, forced into eternity by 1,000 cameras. So tonight, as the dust settles, one truth cuts clear. This wasn't just scandal. It was a fracture that revealed the fragility beneath the facade. The end? Not yet. The story is unfinished. Blake will sing again, Gwen will reinvent again, and the rest of us will keep debating their choices. Long after the headlines fade. Because this wasn't just the collapse of a love story. It was the moment an entire generation was reminded that icons are human, that devotion has a breaking point, and that even in the brightest spotlight, heartbreak and hope still cast the deepest shadows.